first off, I have to say thank you for talking to me at all. Like I can't stress Mystery Science Theater was amazing, and still is. And I have fond memories of as a kid just recording episodes onto VHS tapes with my combo TV VHS player, and just watching them over and over and over again. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Very kind of you.
So would you consider Mystery Science Theater and RiffTrax to be like film criticism at times?
Yeah, I think it's certainly not the aim of either of them, because there's smarter and better criticism, and fairer criticism out there that doesn't have the main mission that we do, which is to sort of be entertaining. So we're not always particularly fair or even smart. Like we're going for laughs for the most part, but you can't watch as many things as we have without, becoming aware of certain patterns that come up in bad movies. And in a backwards way, it does provide film criticism, or at least criticism of film tropes, maybe more than like the films themselves. Like we're not seriously taking on the role of critic, because there are better and better trained people for that. But you do fall into it because you notice patterns and weird screenwriting things that happen, and just lazy movie making and tropes that are relied on. And we're not the only people to notice them, but we're probably the first people to really try to make a living off of it.
Right. Yeah, I asked because actually some of the first specific pointed criticism I remember was from Mystery Science Theater, specifically I believe it was not Overdrawn at the Memory Bank, but the whatever. It was the first time I noticed the boom actually being in the shot.
Oh yeah.
And you guys pointed that out. I had no idea what a boom was, and so it was like, oh, that's what that is. It was like kind of it was the first time as a kid I was like, oh wait, people make these. Like these aren't some magic like things that exist, like legitimate, like humans make these movies. So
yeah, and the other part of that is, and what I try to keep in my mind at least, is that people do miss them, and really outside of the more recent trend of meta bad movies attempting to be bad, like Sharknado and such, nobody really sets out to make a subpar movie. I mean, for the most part, even the more twisted directors out there really think they're making something good, or at least hope to. So that colors my criticism, especially as I get older, and a little less, a little more reasonable, I hope, about. And not everything works out all the time for people. You don't have to just grind them into the dirt for it. But our mission is to provide an alternate kind of entertainment out of those movies, and that we try to keep that in mind. That it's not to nuke any movie in particular.
Yeah, that was one of the things that for Mystery Science Theater and for RiffTrax that even though they contained like those bits of criticism, you guys, for the most part, it felt like you guys were having fun with the movie rather than at the movie's expense. So it's really interesting that you bring up this sort of like positivity sort of aspect of it. But how do you balance how did you and how do you with RiffTrax balance the negativity with those riffs?
Well, we don't always balance it very well. I think and every now and then we like pull back and go, oh, wait a minute, it's getting like that again. And I have to say, it happens a lot more when we do a big Hollywood movie that is frustrating and feels like cynical. And when we did a couple of the Transformers movies, and that was a little bit of masochism on our part to some degree.
And even back in MST3k, I mean, I remember fondly the Joe Don Baker riffs. Like, It went a little bit maybe too overboard on some of the fat stuff, but
yeah, I mean, and things change over time too. What felt what felt kind of right 20 years ago isn't always right now, certainly. And every now and then I'm listening to something old we do and I cringe a little bit. Oh man, I would not do that now. But that's cool. You can evolve with the time. The thing that gets dicier is letting our own frustration with a particular movie, even some of the old low budget ones where it just gets so boring or it doesn't really lend itself to making jokes very well, which is not the movie maker's fault. That wasn't their goal, to let that get into the mix too much, because then it's no fun to just listen to these old guys kvetching at the movie.
Right. So,
despite what Waldorf and Statler taught us.
Right. So, how do you feel about modern film criticism on YouTube?
I can't say I'm super familiar with it. I know there's a ton of it that I haven't seen, but I'm all for it. It should be a democratic thing. And the only part that I don't care about criticism in the internet age, I don't know, the degree of sniping about things that aren't a real big deal in the end. Like, there's a point at which you just have to sort of accept that other people were into it and some people were not. And maybe it was always thus with criticism, but it just seems like, I don't know, just taking the recent Star Wars, for example, the fact that it became such a mission to some people to say how much they hated it, or and then defend it from those people seems too much to me. Like, it is still in the end just a movie,
right?
But that's me.
Have you heard of CinemaSins and their Everything Wrong with videos?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those.
How do you feel about them?
I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember thinking it was funny. And I get, like, I've also heard people complaining about them, because I think they are very nitpicky, but I don't know the people at all who do it, but I get that they are being nitpicky on purpose and sometimes even parody their own nitpickiness. But just like our thing, it can be tiresome to people who like a certain movie, thinking that you're just using it as fodder and you're not being reasonable in some way. And I guess my answer to that is, we're not real. Our job isn't really being reasonable; it's being funny. And if you don't find it funny, and if you just find it obnoxious, I'm not going to say you're wrong. That's the way it goes.
Right. And, that's, I'm one of the people that criticize CinemaSins, and I haven't met them either. But, when I watch their videos, it's kind of like if you took Mystery Science Theater and you only had the negative riffs.
Right.
And you just like the really, really nitpicky stuff, like kind of mean-spirited stuff, which in context of the full Mystery Science Theater is like, it's just one single part of it. You have to take it with the whole context. But when you like nitpick like that, you kind of rob the movie of the context that it kind of needs in order for a joke to work or really say something.
Yeah, and there's nothing that can hold up to that kind of scrutiny. I mean, not even really good stuff.
Right.
You could do that with The Godfather or Citizen Kane or any number of classic great movies. And I would also add, for us, in terms of like as much as we are indulging in criticism of the movie here and there, it's always connected to a moment, or it's mostly connected to a moment, I think. And our goal is really pretty piecemeal, like moment by moment, to make it funny. But that does involve just realizing the accumulation of cracks we've made about a certain thing before. And when it's time to lighten it up and and not focus on the movie, on the badness of the movie or the dumbness of the movie so much as just like an absurd thing. We do a lot of jokes that have nothing to do with the quality of the movie at all. In fact, we've done some really good movies where we couldn't do that at all because the movies were really good and we thought they were good. And that was sort of our challenge. It's like, how do we make a humor soundtrack sort of for this movie without, talking about how subpar it is here and there.
And that's another thing that's kind of a major difference between what you guys do and what CinemaSins does, which is kind of like CinemaSins doesn't really care about accuracy, whereas with Mystery Science Theater and RiffTrax, you guys are very, like, because you're presenting the movie in its entirety, and on RiffTrax, you're you're commentating over the entirety of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's really hard for you guys to like get stuff just wrong with a movie, like.
Yeah.
But when you have something like CinemaSins, which is basically just all of the riffs from a RiffTrax or a Mystery Science Theater, and you just provide them without any of the original context, it's very easy to be just legitimately wrong about stuff the movie was trying to say and do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we have the movie there as witness. If we get something wrong, and assuming it's not just completely due to the movie's incoherence, which happens too.
Oh yeah.
Like there are times when we do such weird and bad old movies that don't have any handle on their story at all.
Right.
It really is genuinely puzzling what's going on. And so we get something wrong, and we do try to be conscientious about not letting that joke stay, because it's a misunderstanding. We're not really blaming ourselves for the misunderstanding entirely, but it's not a good joke if it's built on a false premise.
Right, exactly. And that's why in my video kind of criticizing CinemaSins, I directly showed from season 10 from Squirm in Mystery Science Theater. There was just a really well-told joke that you did. And, it was probably written by all of you guys, but you were the one, Crow was the one to say it. But it was just like the huge gulf of a difference between an accurate, subtly critical, but also overly funny, because a joke, that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just jarring to show that just juxtaposed with something that CinemaSins does, where they wholly misinterpret or just completely get facts about a film wrong. So
yeah,
it's you would say that it's important for accuracy in your riffs.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like there's a point in which there's only so much we can do if it's just incoherent, and then we try to find a different source of humor.
Right.
Or we'll joke about the fact that we don't understand what's going on. Like that's there are variations of that pretty common with us, because we often don't. And to find slightly interesting ways of saying that, or funny ways without just hating it, because that's not our mission either. But yeah, insofar as purposely misunderstanding something for a joke, that doesn't feel right to me. No.
How many times do you guys watch films for how many times did you watch for Mystery Science Theater, and how many times do you watch with RiffTrax movies to come up with riffs and stuff?
Yeah, I think for MST3k we eventually counted it as approximately 9 times. Some of us more than others, some of us sections more than others, because there was a point after which we did our sort of writing room draft of everybody just blurting out jokes and somebody recording them, that a couple of us would go to our offices and spend about 2 days putting the first draft of the script together from that. And that would be broken into sections. So I got to know, and I was one of those people, so I got to know one part of the movie especially well. And now with RiffTrax, we have a different way of doing it, which is it has its good and bad points comparatively. We basically just each take a section of the movie and write a first draft of it, and then we put it together. So it's a little bit backwards version of the process. And the good part about that is that it's more efficient than the old blurting it out days, because that was really, the only word I can think of is it was not very efficient, because so much of it we couldn't use, and there was so much time spent just typing down jokes that were making the room laugh, but there was no space for it. Movie, which you really can't figure out until you take a close look. But I do miss the camaraderie and just the silliness of the writers' room. So I would say it's still approximately the same amount of, anywhere from 5 to 10 times, depending on the section of the movie itself. But a lot.
Awesome. So last question. On RiffTrax, you guys allow for iRiffs, and I know it's being rehauled a little bit, but I and my friend Voidberger have actually done a riff of our own, an iRiff.
Oh, cool!
And it was
awesome,
super fun, and so what advice?
Which movie did you guys do?
We did Silent Hill.
Oh yeah,
which is a classic video game adaptation movie, which, oh boy, that talk about incoherent movies, that movie. Oh man. Anyway, so what advice would you give people like me, or people like, making their own, doing their own riffs, or even, trying to take the MST3k thing and transferring it to the modern age?
Yeah, it's funny because so many people are doing a variation of that on Twitter, like live tweeting and all that right now.
Yeah.
And so you are getting to see a lot of people just indulging in meta all over the place. But I think the difference still in what we do is, for better or worse, we really do put some time into writing it. It isn't improv. I have done stuff like that on stage, and it's really fun. It's fun not to have to write so much, but we try to make something that fits with the movie, that doesn't fight the movie too much, like sound wise.
Mm-hmm.
It's a habit we have to remind ourselves of, because we have a pretty decent work ethic. Like we want to give entertaining stuff to people, but sometimes we overwrite and we just have too many jokes, and you can see that even in seasons of MST3k. Sometimes it feels a little like, are these guys on amphetamines or something? Every 2 seconds there's a joke. I've concluded that doesn't sound natural. It doesn't have the illusion of people reacting in real time and coming up with an unreasonably funny line at the right moment, but it kind of spoils that illusion. So I'd say time it out, and don't try to ramrod over dialogue. If there's a lot of it, maybe avoid those kind of movies. And the other thing I would say is just change it up. That's the one thing I've learned. It's like you're just hitting on one aspect of the movie, especially if it's critical in a slightly harsh way. I think that comes off a little sour, and being silly and referential in a playful way, I think, mixes it up and makes it feel more like comedy or something else, another kind of thing besides just lock and loading on the movie.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's actually one of the criticisms that I and a lot of other people have with the latest Mystery Science Theater on Netflix. See a lot of people saying that and I felt this way during the first episode I watched, where it's just like really just like machine gun humor. It's like I don't know how I feel about that. It's just kind of a lot.
It's easier to do when you're writing it. It's and then it needs to be field tested. And I think it's we keep, like I said, we keep relearning that. So, and I think they hopefully have for their upcoming season. Because you just feel like, oh, we should be doing something here. It's our job to tell jokes, but the movie's going on the whole time, and you need to kind of be able to get into the movie a little bit and have the commentary work.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's a weird art to it.
Yeah.
Useless in almost every other human endeavor, but we've got it down.
Well, thank you so much again, Bill. I mean, I can't say, like, this is a childhood dream of mine to talk to you. So.
Oh, thanks, Bob. Very nice of you.